Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Conversations Unplugged, hosted by Dr. Bhaskar Bora. And today we are privileged to have a special guest, Mr. Abhai Bhargava, who is not only a very good friend, but is a source of inspiration to many with his story. And we're going to speak to him about lots of things in a very informal, casual way. And we will get to know him more. And I'm sure there are lots of things that you will be learning from him. So, welcome again to all my viewers. And Abhay, thank you very much for your time. And would like to start by just knowing a bit more about you, please.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Bhaskar. So it is an honor to be invited to this session. Let me start off by probably saying that originally I am from India, but moved to UK around 22, 23 years ago. And before moving to UK, as part of my education, I did chemical engineering from Indian Institute of Technology, or IIT as it is known in India. Then came to Bangalore to do work with a company called Infosys as a software engineer, and then moved to UK pretty shortly. And then, as fate would have it, it takes you to places. So I moved around a lot within Europe, and then at some point we decided that the family needs more stability, and that's when we came back to UK.
That's great. Abhay, I know you're a very humble person. So, you've just mentioned it in one line about passing through IIT and coming to UK. But I know IIT, or for people who don't know about IIT, it's the Indian Institute of Technology, which is the premier institute for engineering in India. And IIT exam is known to be one of the world's toughest entrance exams. So not only did you get into IIT, but you also came out as a topper, I believe. So tell us a bit more about your journey into IIT
Yeah,
and your journey through engineering.
interesting you mentioned this. So the year which I took the exams in India, maths was the first paper, entrance exam I'm talking about. And it was supposed to be the toughest paper in the previous 16 years. So when I came out of the exam hall, and my dad was waiting. So during break, so we used to have 3-hour exam for each subject, physics, chemistry, maths. And it was maths first. After coming out, I told my dad that we should go home because I think I have done only until 35, 40 marks out of 100, and there is no chance that anything will happen. I did not know that it was one of the toughest papers. So I said, like, I mean, maybe next year or I'll do something else. And it still is something imprinted in me, the statements that my dad made. And he said, well, we have paid the fees for the exam. You are prepared. Why don't you take the rest too as well, physics and chemistry? And you don't clear. Anyways, I guess you're thinking of doing other things. So I said, fine. I mean, after eating lunch or whatever, I went back and took the exam. And I think the cutoff for maths was like 4 or 5 marks that
Wow.
year.
Mm.
So, I mean, that tells you a lot, like in terms of people supporting you, your family members, and also not letting you fall in that sense. I mean, had I moved on, maybe I would have taken a different path. I mean, whether it would have been better or worse, you don't know. But I guess figuring out something as success or failure or rushing it too much is something that I learned on that day or after that day. That is something that patience is very, very important there. And I went to the college. I mean, yeah, people come from all parts of the country there in India. And pretty much everyone is a state topper or something. So you mix with a crowd that is pretty clever, and sometimes you meet people who are naturally talented. So that creates an environment where you, of course, make friends for life. A lot of people who studied chemical engineering with me. became friends even till today. And I think it's very informal. We meet once a quarter as well on Zoom or Google Meet. And yeah, it's very nice. But the college itself, I think it was very hard. I should accept that. Equally, I think there is a group of individuals you will find in every class that are competing for the top position and so on. The good part in my class was that that competition was healthy, and those folks were not like having a go at each other or anything like that. I mean, people were very, very nice. And
Yeah,
then I
no, that's really useful to know. As you said, I mean, family support, your determination, your own determination, your motivation, everything plays a huge part. And of course, then there is that part of destiny as well, because I mean, if you were not destined to be where you are now, then perhaps you would have gone home before lunch and not give the rest of the exams. But there you are, you held on and you did the exam. And I think, as you mentioned, that there is this in India. I mean, education is for survival, right? It's not a privilege, because back in our time, when we were talking about 30 years ago, when we gave our entrance exams and all, of course I went for medicine, because I don't think I was clever enough to go into IIT or anything. And as I said, we all have different interests and we went different ways. But 30 years ago, the society was like, you either become a doctor or an engineer, and only if you can't do that, then you would be supported to go somewhere to do something else. But thankfully things have changed and there are a lot
yeah,
more options. There are a lot more colleges, there are a lot more places and opportunities nowadays. But I think it still is important that we have the same kind of determination and the grit and the resilience to go up to it. So I think you should be congratulated for doing what you did and achieving what you have. And as you said, you had a healthy competition and you passed out with very good marks and got into. Did you get into Infosys through
I
placement?
went into Infosys, and then from there, I think we got training and we worked into projects and so on. And I came to UK, to Scotland.
Yeah, tell
And
us a bit more about that.
yeah, it's I think probably funny story as well. So first time I came in, because I was a bachelor and fresh out of college within less than a year or whatever. The intent was to work and work. So I would go to office around 7:30 or whatever in the morning, and then come back at 8, 9 or whatever. So I came here in Edinburgh working for a mutual fund company as a client. And there the work culture was very much work-life balance. 9 o'clock you turn up and 5 o'clock you are done. And I was the only one who was working long hours. So my boss at the customer's place came over and said like, something wrong? And I'm like, no, like, why do you ask? And then it eventually, after discussion, I realized, okay, they want me to finish at 5 and then go home and enjoy basically your personal time. So after a while, I started becoming slightly bored, like, okay, what do? You go out or whatever. So I thought, okay, maybe let me make some friends. And then I realized that actually Infosys had no one else in Scotland. So I'm like, okay, what do I do? And this is pre-WhatsApp days. So there was no way to communicate with
Hmm.
people. So you could walk into a club or something and then maybe try to make friends, but was much harder than today, I should say. So in the end, I found out that there is a friend of a friend who's coming to Edinburgh or Glasgow for that matter. And then we became friends, and then we started roaming around in the places and so on. It was both fun and weird, I should say, at the same time. It's super cold place, Edinburgh or Scotland in general. And I was coming from, originally I was from North India, which is a pretty warm place, 42, 45 degrees in temperature in summers. And here it was minus 15 or something. But yeah, human body is amazing in that sense, as we all know. It adapts very quickly. And then we made friends as well with a lot of people. It was very nice time. It rains a lot in Scotland. Initially, I carried an umbrella, but then I realized, okay, it's not of any use because it rains and it is very windy. So
Mm.
it's not you carrying the umbrella. The umbrella started carrying me. So I was like, okay, I'll throw it away. But the work-wise, it was very, very good. And then I moved on to other places, like I worked for various banks and so on, financial institutions. And then moved on to Accenture UK, where again I was working for telecoms client, and I worked for aviation like Lufthansa Airlines. And one of the softwares that we developed, I was a development lead there, was for landing and takeoff. So the software they used for landing and takeoff was built by us. And from what I know, because during COVID, we all checked with old friends, and some of them are friends still with me, the German colleagues back then. And they mentioned that that software is still used as a backup, which I think is the only piece of software that I have been involved in that has been used for more than 20 years. Everything else gets replaced within a few years. And then I think from Accenture, by accident, I moved into Shell. Even if I was a chemical engineer, I was into software. But this was as close to chemical engineering as I ever got, working for an oil or energy company. And I came in to do work on certain digital applications or whatever. But then Shell as a company is a large organization, a company of companies, I should say. When you move around and you work in a retail sector, sometimes you are working for lubricants business and so on. And I work both in IT and business. It's a very nice organization with a lot of really, really nice people. The work culture is very nice. So it kept me. And in between, I did MBA from Oxford. So yeah, I mean, I think, and like you said, Bhaskar, and it's so true for me as well, that we come from what I think is or was known as middle class in India, where the only thing you could have was education. There was nothing else, like no other option or opportunity. And education was your only, I would say, way of swimming across the river. And that has taken us to places where we have been, or to work in places where I think we have worked or are working still.
Of course. I mean, within the last 2 minutes, you have covered on so many things, which each of which can be a podcast in itself. So I think, as you rightly mentioned, and my dad used to say, I used to just talk to him during his last days, and I say to him, why weren't you rich? If you had been rich, then I wouldn't have to struggle as much. And his reply was that, I have got two children, one is a doctor, one is an engineer, that is my biggest asset.
Yeah.
What more riches do I need? I think that is the mentality that most of us have. Like, we kind of live for our children, and the best thing you can give to our children is education. That's what we believe in.
And that
And
is
it was really nice to hear from you, from your employers, about your employers, about your ex-employers, and all. You have said all positive things about them, and that in itself shows the positivity in you, because I come across many people, both as a doctor, in terms of patients or colleagues, or now in my current role as a mentor and counselor. Not many people say positive things, especially about their ex-employers. So I think it is a lot about how you get on with other people, that other people come back to you as well, isn't it? It's a give and take sort of thing. Because if you are not friendly enough or positive, or give out a positive vibe, then other people won't be as positive to you as well.
Agree. I think, and most people are really good from the heart. And unless you start messing around, I think you do get that goodness returned to you very, very quickly. I agree with that. And I'm a strong
Exactly.
believer in that as well.
And the other thing I think what is important is that if we have come to another country, it is not that we have been forced to come here, whether it's the UK or Germany or Switzerland or any other country. We have come by choice. We've taken up this struggle by choice. So I think it is also upon us to acclimatize and to adjust and respect these cultures as well.
Correct. And I think that part is so true. I mean, I've lived in various countries, although UK probably takes the biggest share of the professional career life. But in each place, I think people have been very, very accommodating. When a lot of people talk a lot of negative things about racism and those kind of things, I am not saying that it doesn't exist, but equally, I think it works both ways. If you are walking into a new place, there are certain things you need to learn. And then, of course, yeah, there are certain adjustments and there are certain bad apples out there everywhere. But I think you shouldn't mess around with your own experience or way of operating or working just because of
Absolutely.
certain bad apples.
Yeah, very true. And I think at the same time, it is also true that you have to appreciate your own roots and keep your identity as well, because many of us, I mean, we almost forget where we have come from and what we are. And I think in your case, especially, I think the thing I really commend is that you've been through to so many countries and you're a strict vegetarian, right? And you've been able to maintain that. It must have been quite difficult, and you probably have got
Yes, I'm
lots
a
of
boring
stories about
person.
that.
I think it's probably a better description. So I don't drink alcohol or eat non-vegetarian stuff. I have started eating egg in last few years, but other than that, I think yeah, it is very, very difficult. And I mean, in between, I gave up tea and coffee as well for a little while, for a few months, and then I think I was told by friends and family that you need to stop, because if you give up tea and coffee, like what exactly is left as an addiction? So I then came back to tea and coffee. But it was actually, to be fair, I mean, when I gave up tea and coffee, it was amazing feeling, because now, I mean, of course, I drink tea and coffee now. In the first half of the day, I need a tea or a coffee or something to keep me going. Back then, I think my second half of the day was more productive than first half. I wouldn't feel lazy, lethargic, or anything of that sort. When body needed something, it was all about water. Yeah, of course, the water gives you life in that sense. But okay, I mean, yeah. Other than that, pretty boring, because I'm not gonna be an entertaining person when friends are drinking. On the flip side, I am the one who gets the entertainment when people are drunk.
So you can see their behaviors when they are drunk.
I know some secrets. Yes.
That is great. That is great.
Yeah,
No, I think you see, I mean, I believe, and I hope you'll agree that if you have a real friend, then it doesn't matter whether you drink or don't drink. It doesn't matter
correct.
if you meet them every day or you meet them once a year. It is a meeting of minds more than the physical meeting, isn't it? And if it's a real friend, they would understand you even without a word being said.
Agreed. Agreed.
And I think,
Sorry, that reminds me, one of my college friends, and I should call him best friend as well. He is based out of Delhi, and I was going through Delhi very recently, not so long ago, post COVID, I should say, if we assume we are out of COVID. And he learned that so I messaged him saying that I'm going to be stopping over at Delhi for a little while. And he still lives like, I think, 50 or 100 kilometers away, which is like 60, 70 miles or something. And he came over just for 1.5 hour meeting. And even that was dicey, because we were not sure if the flight will land on time and I would be able to come on time and whatnot. And only when you land, you could message that, okay, I'm here. So there was a period of, like, let's call it a black moment or spot where he wouldn't know if I would even come out. And yet he was there outside the airport, and we spent time. It didn't feel like 20, 25 years have passed since we graduated. His wife also came along after a little while. And yeah, I mean, it doesn't feel like you are talking to someone who hasn't spoken to you for quite some years.
absolutely, absolutely. So now both you and I, we are first generation immigrants. We have been through quite a few struggles. And I suppose those struggles have also made us appreciate more of what we have got now. Uh, so, what is your message that you'd give to people who are planning to come over, or they're planning to be a first generation immigrant? What would be your message to them, whether it is to UK or to any other country?
Yeah, I think, see, of course, it's a big leap of faith, I would say, where you are moving out of your place. And it's interesting you mentioned this. I was talking to a work colleague, not related to the professional work, but on the front that his wife got, I think, approved for Australian visa. And he was very confused and concerned in terms of, should I move or should I not? And he was asking me that, okay, so you're living outside, what do you think? I'm like, okay, from an opportunity perspective, it's good. But there are certain things you will have, which is like, unless you become friends with a lot of people eventually, which will take time, the helping hands will be almost next to zero. So you'll have to do everything on your own. And yeah, I mean, eventually you'll build relationships, you will know people and so on. But for a while, it is slightly harder than I would say probably in a country like India, where you get a lot of people to help you, both from a house help, but also family and friends. But on the other hand, I guess you start appreciating diversity a lot once you are part of a group which is not necessarily in majority, or you are not in your home ground, I would call it.
Mhm.
Equally, I think you need to learn a lot more as compared to probably someone who is in their home ground, because the opportunities there are more for them, or at least in the beginning. Eventually, I think let's call it the playing field becomes level. But in the beginning, I think there are bumps on the road that you have to cross. But would I discourage anyone from moving? No, I think it's a fantastic thing to do. Also for the kids, I think they get international exposure. Here, I think the kids study with people of all skin colors, races, gender, and diversity is everywhere here, which I think is fantastic. The opportunities are more. And it's probably true for many countries, right? And although I guess India also has that nowadays, but getting given an opportunity, I would still say that I would not do it any differently.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. I think, as you said, there are pros and cons. I think a reality check is really important, because it's, I mean, anything that glitters is not really golden, and many people think that the grass is always greener on the other side. So it is not all bling and gold. So there is a lot of hard work involved. That doesn't mean that somebody has to be discouraged, but it is important to know what the reality is going to be, and that it's not going to be smooth sailing. So there are going to be some bumps on the road, but if you can navigate those bumps, then there is no stopping you.
Yep.
At the same time, I suppose, the 20 years that we've been here, India has progressed quite a bit. So I think the opportunities are much more there. Although the competition, because it's more than a billion people, so the competition is a lot more there as well. So I think one has to have an honest check, and they have to also look at lots of different things, right? I mean, if they are looking for a a home help, or two or three home helps, or they want to have be very close to family and those sort of things, then probably it's not the best idea. But if on the other hand, you are going to be ready to assemble a table by yourself, a wardrobe by yourself, and do everything, wash your own car and everything, then yes, why not? As you say.
Yep. True. And that's something that during COVID as well, a lot of friends and colleagues were talking about, like, okay, so in India also the house help, for example, stopped coming during COVID, and they started complaining about, oh, I need to clean the house, etc. And then they started asking, like, so how do you do this over and over again for several years? And I'm like, well, you get used to it, for example. And when I would joke mostly like, okay, you are talking to the toilet cleaner and the taxi driver and the house cleaner over the weekend in this call, because that's what I am. Or equally, if you talk to my wife, she has exact similar roles. Washing clothes, utensils, etc. We do that, and you can't get away from it or shy away from it.
One thing I have learned to appreciate after coming to this country is the dignity of labor.
Agree.
I think that is something which we don't really realize in India. And as you know about my own story of this life-changing injury and everything, and now um, having done different roles, including being a waiter, doing waiting on my customers in the restaurant, cleaning tables, cleaning cutlery, and all that. You've seen that, but that
Yeah.
also makes you appreciate and respect all these different people. And the other thing that I've come to respect uh, as well is if you it wouldn't be possible to or even think about having a Pakistani friend when you are in India. But out here, we are all Asians, right? So that I mean, you have lots of Pakistani, Bangladeshi, and all friends, and then you have cross race friends as well. I mean, there's whether it's white or black or something. I mean, human mind often tend to generalize things, but I think all individuals are different. So I think that
Yep.
is something I have appreciated. I'm sure you have as well.
Yep. True. That is true, and it's probably across both work and personal front that we work with folks who are from altogether different countries, skin color, mindset, values, culture, and some of them are really really close friends, I would say. I mean, even when we took the British citizenship, the passport application needs to be vetted by someone, and mine is vetted by people who are nowhere near Indians in any shape or form, not just the skin color, but anything else you take. And they are one of the closest friends I've got even today, and also ex-work colleagues or something you can call them. And that I couldn't imagine when I started the career that I would probably take up a nationality of a different country, and the vetting would be done by someone who is from a totally different country, different skin color, and so on, and a really good
That's
friend.
very true. And in fact, I remember that when I started, it was actually a Welsh guy who helped me make my CV. A Welsh doctor who actually stopped his private clinic, lost several £100 because of not seeing those patients, and he sat down, rewriting my CV because he said that my CV was purely for an Indian job, not for a UK job.
Yeah,
So similarly, I got my first break into a partnership with an English guy who became my father figure.
yeah,
So I think the message here is, I mean, at the end of the day, we should all aim to be global citizens and good human beings. And if we try to be positive and if we try to give out a good vibe, then more often than not, you will get the same back. But of course, that's not true all the time. But more than not, it does happen.
yeah. And usually, I think if you find someone who is not necessarily behaving well, there might be something else going on in the background. But okay, I mean, again, you cannot have 100% all the time good things going on. So
True.
again, I think it's probably a learning that usually I take it as a learning. If something happens, then you just take it as a learning and move on rather than continuously worrying about it.
Absolutely. So, what would be your message to the younger generation who are now aspiring to get into building their careers, get into engineering or medicine, or for that matter, into humanities? What would be your advice to them?
So it's interesting you mentioned this. Over the weekend, I actually teach kids in IIT for 1 or 2 hours remotely, um, as a voluntary thing, and I enjoy that. And the only thing I would say is that the kids these days are much smarter than I was when I was their age. They know a lot. I mean, a lot of this has to do not just with the fact that they are clever, but also with the fact that they get a lot, they utilize the help available through the digital media to them in a
A lot
really,
more
really good
resources
way.
are available. Yeah.
So they do that and they come up with brilliant ideas, like some of the startup ideas. And it ranges from, you can call it helping the society through to, of course, making money as well, where people have gone out and created products that clean water in vast areas of India. And they made money as well as part of that. But I think they went in with an intent of doing something for the society. So the message to the kids, I think, is yeah, keep going in the manner that you're going, and try to make the best use of the resources that you've got. I mean, I so wish that if we had those kind of resources back then, maybe we could have done something better or different, but no regrets, I would still say.
Perfect. Yeah, definitely. I mean, there are many more things that are available now. I remember the times when we had to photocopy books by foreign writers because we could not afford to buy those, or we had to go to the library to search for a certain book or reference material and things like that. But nowadays, it's everything is available on the internet. In fact, there is an infodemic now, isn't it? You have to actually now you are overloaded with information that you have to make sure that you are getting the right information. I
Yeah,
think that's another challenge in itself. But if nowadays, I think if you really want to make the most of the things available, it's a lot easier than what
right.
it used to be in the past. And I suppose this generation will tell the next generation that they didn't have those things, and then something new will come up
Yeah,
at that
and
time.
that's probably natural as well. The technology will continue to advance, right? I mean, I was talking to my nephew who is doing engineering from a college in India. And he was saying he talks to his mom, which is my sister, every day on phone. And I said, back when I was studying engineering, we had one phone, the big one in the hostel, and time was allocated from 8 to 9 p.m. and everyone had a minute slot. And either you could phone,
Yeah,
or your
I
family would
remember
phone,
those
and
times.
that's
Yeah.
it. And I said, like, it's good that technology has advanced. Now they can talk, but also he can share pictures and so on. I don't have any pictures from the college. Well, actually, there are one or two pictures from the college, and that to the group pictures that we took with someone having the old style camera. But that's it. There is no other memory except what is in your head.
No, that's true. But those were the times when you had that blue color inland letter. You
Yep,
remember when you used to have pen pals, things like
yep,
that. I studied in Kendra Vidyalaya, so it was an Air Force Central School. So we had to be transferred every 3 years, and my friends would be all over India, and we used to write one letter a month, and that
yep,
one letter would cover everything for the whole month. So I think
yep.
that was a different pleasure as well. So
Correct.
now you just pick up the WhatsApp and you just send it off, and so maybe even when you're talking with parents and things like that, I remember you had to go to a PCO, you have to
Correct.
stand in the queue. If the other person is talking too long or taking too long, you keep knocking on the
Correct. Correct.
the PCO glass and those sort of things. But then you wouldn't have seen your parents for several months before you meet them, so the excitement was
Correct.
different.
Yep.
Now I talk to my mom nearly every day, so even when you see them, yes, it's nice to see them face to face, but you don't feel like you haven't seen them. And I
Correct.
think it's
Or
it's
haven't spoken to them. Yeah,
or
no,
haven't
totally.
spoken to them. Yeah. So this newness is not there. So
Yep.
I suppose that's positive and negative. So we have only got a couple of minutes left. Just lastly, I want to have your take quickly on artificial intelligence.
Right. So
What do you think?
I think it is good if we make it good for us. From our perspective as an organization, but also personally, I feel that we're trying to use it for our benefit. So let it do the tasks and jobs that we struggle doing, and then it will do well. Is it going to take away some jobs? Possibly, but then that's true for everything. When I started the career, then they said, like, okay, software at some point will take away, or digitalization will take away jobs. It did take away some jobs, but you have to upskill yourself continuously. So I don't see that as the biggest threat out there. And we just need to make good use of it in terms of automating stuff that we can and making our lives easier and simpler, and go from big phones to a mobile phone, that kind of setup. The ease has come. So we need to do that. And there will be disadvantages of it like anything else. And we just need to make ourselves aware of the dangers. I mean, it's same as data privacy, security these days, all of these topics. If you're not familiar properly with those, you might end up in the wrong kind of space where either fraud might happen or whatever. So there is general awareness and keeping yourself up to speed with what is happening. But coming back to artificial intelligence, I think it can help a lot if we try to use it in the right way and not be threatened by it.
Yeah, I think I completely agree with you. I think it is artificial intelligence is, or machine learning or automation is inevitable. It is coming. We should rather be ahead of it than trying to push it back. But I suppose at the same time, it is important that we still have our own intelligence to control the artificial intelligence and not be enslaved by the robots or artificial intelligence. And there should be some sort of ethics into developing artificial intelligence. But definitely, I mean, like everything else, every few years we get some sort of disruptive technology, isn't it? And that is the way of evolution. So
Correct.
this is another sort of disruption. And I think if we can upskill ourselves and learn more about it rather than criticizing it and blocking it, then probably we would be ahead of the game.
Agree. Totally agree.
So thank you very much, Abhay. So it was a wonderful conversation. I have known you for a few years, but today has been another enlightening conversation. So thank you very much. And thank you to all our viewers who have watched this conversation. I'm sure you have learned a few things. You have enjoyed this conversation. I look forward to seeing you again on another episode with another guest. For today, on behalf of you all, I would like to thank Abhay Bhargava, a former IITian and now a senior corporate employee in the UK, a very respectable person. So thank you very much for your time once again, and we hope to see you again very soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Have a lovely day.
Bye.
Bye.